just talking to each other.
Yeah. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to Susie and Angie Sound Off. We were just chatting backstage, and we're like, "What the heck are we doing?" And what we're doing is something we know we can do, which is talk to each other. We're just going to do it while some of you out there are watching. And welcome to Leadership Conversations No One Prepares You For. I think in Susie and I getting to know each other for the last year and a half or two, after meeting on a stage, by the way.
Yeah.
At a conference for leadership where we both spoke, we realized there's just a whole lot of change happening in leadership, and we're ill-equipped for it as leaders. And that's kind of to no fault of our own. There's not a lot of training unless you kind of seek this stuff out. And we get put into tough situations and conversations and have to just figure it out on the fly. And so I think what we're going to try to do is maybe have a little less, bring you some just insights that maybe help you a little less to figure out on the fly, maybe. Yeah. And so I think the content's going to kind of curate itself. If you are out there watching and you've got a tough conversation at your fingertips and you want us to help you through it, hey, this could be live therapy if we want it to be. So Susie, chime in and kind of tell everybody what's on your mind when it comes to tough conversations in leadership.
Yeah. And we're going to also share kind of some of the conversations that we have. We're not going to name names. Maybe we'll change the names to protect the innocent. But yeah, just, and like Angie said, we're just going to talk like we normally do when we catch up, because we compare notes. We talk about what people are talking about and what's kind of getting in their way. And I remember I worked with one woman one time who said, everybody always tells me I need to know how to do this, this, and this, but they never tell me how. They never help me through. And I think so many people don't get those things. And let's be honest, we're going from meeting to meeting and thing to thing, and we don't take a lot of time to be aware of where we are and what we're doing. And sometimes we need to look up, especially as we go up in the organization, to look up and out and not just consider us, but what's happening around us too.
I think that you just brought up our first tough conversation.
All right.
And that is a conversation we're not having. And that is the fact that leadership has gotten way more complicated and multifaceted now. And it isn't just because of technology and AI. That is one substantial aspect to it. But in my observations, I feel leadership, especially at the manager tier, is expected to wear about 79 hats instead of 12 hats like we used to. And I'm curious if you've seen the same thing.
Totally. I do think so. And I think technology, and I just wanted to kind of take it back to a leadership, but also what we as humans are dealing with. I was listening to this podcast about technology and AI and how there's fear and excitement on both sides of the table. But one thing is, we are so addicted to our screens. And we're so addicted to being here, and we're always on, and we don't even know the nuances of being on all the time, like the fatigue around that. And they were talking about a study that was done, and they were doing it. I can't remember what country it was in. Anyway, they were talking about Facebook and how they wanted people to talk about their experience on Facebook, and Facebook went down that day. And people started being freaking out that they weren't connected until they realized that Facebook was down for the whole country. And then the people felt relief that they didn't have to be connected, or they weren't missing out. We have this fear of missing out. And so think about that with leadership too. To your point about there's so much around us that are giving us pressure, but on top of that is this thing that we're always connected to. Yeah. That we always, and sometimes I check it and I go to an app and I don't even know why I did.
Yeah.
For no reason.
That's pretty incredible about the fact that you feel Facebook, we'll just go there for a second. Real talk, because this is not only tough leadership conversations, it's real talk about life and leadership. I would say Facebook did a lot of amazing things and a lot of bad things to society. And I think you
Yeah.
just pointed out one is that it gives us this illusion of hyper connection
Yeah.
when really it's perpetuating, and social media and technology in many, many ways is perpetuating just massive disconnection. And I
Yeah.
think it's because there's this superficial level of engagement that when we don't have it at our fingertips, we're forced to go actually spend time with like humans in the flesh and humans that we live with and humans that we actually know in real life. And I think with the whole like technological revolution and AI really exacerbating it, we're going to see more of,
Mhm.
let's say, old school, real, traditional uh human connection. However, the only way we're going to do it is to back off this. So it's look at it, look at it. I held it up and like 29 notifications popped up. It's funny you bring this up, Susie, because the other day I was scrolling. However, I got a helpful tidbit while doing so. And it is, if you want to break that, because that is a mindless habit, by the way. We pick it
Mhm.
up. We don't know why. We don't even know what we go to. You probably do open Facebook or Instagram first and don't even realize it.
Yeah.
If you want to wean yourself off of that, every time you go to pick up your phone, you ask yourself, why am I picking up my phone?
Oh, I like that.
I've started doing it for the last week, and sometimes I'll go, "Oh, I just mindlessly picked up my phone,"
Yeah.
right? But now it's like, and then and then my next level is gonna be, I'm gonna pick this up, I'm gonna do the one thing I just said was the reason I picked it up, and then I'm gonna put it down instead of doing the thing that was the reason that picked you up and then mindlessly going to like all of the apps. And while this isn't like a difficult leadership conversation, these are like small things
Yeah.
that can make a big difference to being present in our environment, whether it's like leading a team or leading at home.
Yeah. I attention, like attention to the person that's sitting in
Mhm.
front of you. And, I was coaching somebody a few months ago, one-on-one. Okay. So, like, obviously, one-on-one. And so they were talking to me and sharing all this. And as soon as they stopped talking, I could tell they were distracted.
Mm.
Even one-on-one,
Yeah.
they went to something else. And so I, as leaders, I want to say, to your point about like, why am I picking this up? How do you make sure that you're making the person in front of you
Mhm.
feel, because you know what? I didn't see she was disconnected. I could tell.
Feel it. You can
So
feel
when
it.
you do that, what you're saying to the other person is, you're not important. And I didn't even see, I couldn't
Mhm.
physically see her phone. You know how the studies say with, if you have this out, like at a dinner or something, people like subconsciously think that this is more important than them.
Yep.
I didn't even see it. And I still didn't feel important. I didn't even know what was replacing
Mhm.
me. And she was paying me to be with
Yeah.
her.
And what comes to mind for some reason is the being present for the people in front of you. And I think as we take this back to leadership conversations and the implementation of leadership advice no one tells you about is, if you are a leader, you need to go get to know every single one of your people at an individual human level. And so there's a connection to me here that, like,
Yeah.
if we're too distracted at home and we're just always like on this thing, we don't know how to connect with people, which means you're probably not doing that at work, which means you're probably not fostering a culture where people feel trust and feel seen. And that, to me, is one of the biggest things that we can do in leadership today with all of the complexities around us, is remember that this is a human to human assignment.
Yeah. Yeah, that connection. And we believe that connection happens fictitiously through
Mm,
that. Like we believe in that. But it's an illusion. It's illusion of connection. It's not connection, but it's
yeah,
not making that true connection. We really need to go down to the grassroots or whatever, like the real thing that's meaningful. And I
yeah.
love what you said because, research shows that leadership is individualizing your approach for the person that's sitting in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how are you doing that?
How are you doing that? It to me, it is taking people with you.
Mhm.
Um, it is less about being leadership so that you're in the spotlight and more about figuring out how you like empower and grow and put others in it, to me. And you can't know what kind of spotlight they want to be in and what kind
Yeah.
of growth they want if you haven't met them one-on-one. Because I guarantee you, if you have more than one person on your team, you have that many different ways they want to grow and be motivated. And if you treat it as a broad scope and as a collective who's all, motivated and driven in the same way, somebody's going to fall by the wayside because you failed to meet them at that really individual human level. And that kind of connection, one, builds really good trust. And we've seen statistics on like, over 50% of people that are pulled at exit say they leave a job because of a manager.
Yeah.
And I will just go ahead and connect the dots and say it's because we have failed to do these kinds of things. But there's also a way of doing that while maintaining like the professional level and the I don't want to say hierarchy, but there is a way to meet people where they're at, get to know them where they're at, however, still maintain your level of influence within the environment and not going like too far to, to disrupt that level. But you really got to know, you got to make meaningful connections.
Yes, you do. And we're always evolving, all of us.
Yes.
And so this is great advice. Like if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, I do that. I'm a great leader. That's my philosophy too. I really want to challenge you
Mhm.
because you need to, we get so used to the way we lead. We always, we have our staff meeting. We have the same agenda. We're the ones that talk, or we have our one-on-ones, and we do it the same way all the time.
Yep.
And we get used to that habit and we believe we're good leaders. But on this kind of thing of individualizing your approach, people are evolving all the time. When was the
Mhm.
last time you, out of curiosity, got to know everybody on your team and did it a little bit differently than you've done it in the past? How
Yeah.
can you really challenge yourself to understand something different than you did before? Because what made them who they were 6 months ago is not who they are today. And you as a leader need to keep up on that. So
Mhm.
I don't want people to be passive about this topic and go, "Yeah, I know that," because we as leaders we're infinitely developable and we're
Yes.
always changing, but we need to put those people first and really invest in them on an ongoing basis. And I got to tell you, it's effort.
Yes. Leadership is not a passive exercise.
Mhm.
And I think that, Susie, everything that you just said to me is more important right now in the snapshot in time that we're in than it ever has been. And I think that's going to become increasingly the case because, people are well, there's the one certainty in the world right now is uncertainty.
Yeah.
And, at a macro level. And I think at a career level, people feel unsettled about the onset of AI and how, not if, how it's going to potentially like disrupt. And it's important to hear those things and make space for them and not just gloss them over. And so in this whole concept of leadership conversations no one prepared you for, I also think this is just as much leadership conversations no one is having but should.
Yeah.
And to me, this is a big one that goes back to, I mean, this is like, say this to myself, extroverted, likes to talk a lot, leader. Leadership is more about listening and learning than it is talking.
Yeah. It totally is. It's out of curiosity, like,
Yeah.
and it's not, as you go up in an organization, it's confidence. You have to gain your confidence so that you can get yourself to feel enough to be in the room. Like, you have to challenge yourself. But as you go up in an organization, you have to shift that and make it less about you and more about them.
Mm.
And I remember, I wrote a blog about feedback a few years ago, and I challenged myself to reread the 360s that were taken about me, like, 10 years prior. Because I was like, if you're going to talk
Yeah.
about feedback, let's see. And what I expected to see was there was one person on my team that didn't like me, didn't think that they should work for me, and I put her on my 360, and I wanted to reread what she wrote, because I wanted to kind of like have an objective view from far away. And what I read was so interesting because the people that would say I was a positive leader, if you look between the lines, what they said was, Susie's a great leader. She listens to us, but she always does what she wants to do.
Ooh,
And I
that's
was
not
like,
easy feedback to get.
yeah, but I couldn't see it in the moment. I didn't understand it in the moment, but it hit me like a because they didn't say it obviously, but I like was able to read the between the lines. So we also need to like take a look at ourselves and think about ways that we can do that that doesn't it's not always going to look the same. Like we have to challenge ourselves out of curiosity.
Mhm.
I like to say, understanding ourselves is like the back of our head. We can feel it. We can see it in the mirror, but it's impossible for us to get behind ourselves and like experience the back of our
You're
head.
never actually gonna look at it.
We can't see it. And so that's what it's like to live outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
We can never experience ourselves. So it's collection of data that can give us a view of what it's like. We'll never
Yeah.
really understand.
Yeah.
And so as leaders, we always need to have that curiosity for the other person, but
Yes.
we also need to be investigating what do we need to do to
Ourselves.
show up? We're not perfect
Yeah.
by any means.
Which goes that to me goes back to like leadership isn't passive nor is it static. This is
Yes.
an interesting conversation. I'm rereading for like the 95th time Think and Grow Rich right now. Which, if none
Mm.
of you read it, it's a great book. I particularly love it because it's connections to Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon and Andrew Carnegie, which is where my alma mater. But anyway, I'm literally on the chapter about gaining knowledge. And it's interesting in the context of this conversation because Napoleon Hill talks a lot about how important it is to continue seeking knowledge. And once you stop seeking knowledge, you're basically, well, we also know like you stop learning and you die, right? But I think it's really interesting in this idea that it isn't just academic knowledge, it's experiential knowledge and intuition and all the things that help us continue to evolve as humans and as
Mm.
leaders and how we take that and relate that to our teams. And you can't ignore that.
Hmm. What advice would you give to somebody in how to apply that?
The first thing that comes to mind is not taking things at face value. And I say that because I feel the workforce is in a shift from in many ways. Obviously, there is the external force of like AI on how that's going to change jobs in the workforce, but I also
Mhm.
think there's an internal shift happening with the way people work, what they're demanding of employers, and we are past the 9 to 5 grind. There's still some people who are living in that and believe it should be happening, but there is space, and I think it's going to increase to kind of make this shift. And so the advice I have is don't take things at face value. And what I mean by that is I'll go back to a blog post I wrote years ago. I think it was one of the first blog posts I wrote. Like it has to be 6 or 7 years old. And it was, what does career growth mean to you? And if you Google definition of career growth, it's like the number 1 or 2 hit, toggles cycles back and forth. But it basically was me getting really fired up and mad about the fact that corporate America, even considering the changes we're seeing, defines one way to grow. Climb a ladder, take more responsibility, get higher titles, and make more money. There are 6, 7, maybe even more now ways to gain knowledge and advance in your career that don't necessarily equate to money and titles. And I would even go so far as most people, that is not their primary motivator, even if they say it is. And that's what I mean by face value, right? It's
Mhm.
really, and that's where it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of like talking to somebody and getting to know their actual human drivers so that you can get below the surface and understand how they actually are motivated. How do they want to grow? They may say they want to move into management because they think that's the only option. But
Yeah.
is that the best route for them? And does it actually align with the way they want to grow? And so my advice, and that is both sides of the coin. If you are a leader, like be curious and don't take things at face value to understand what an individual wants. And if you're an individual, be honest about what you want because nobody can advocate for you better than yourself. And nobody can advocate for you in the right way if you're not being honest about kind of what you seek.
It's interesting because sometimes we don't really know. And
That's
we
also
may
true.
answer the question and say, this is what, to your point, because you said, we'll say that it's promotion or more money and all that, but that's not really what we want necessarily. It might be a byproduct of getting what, it might lead to that. And it's like, is that a societal norm that if you don't say that,
Mm,
you're like, you're weird
yeah.
and and that's so funny. I've never really thought about it like that. No, I don't. Or
Yeah.
will they not believe you? Like if you were to ask me,
Yes.
do you want, when you speak, do you want to get paid? And I'm like, no, like, would you believe me?
I would ask more questions. Well, why not? What do you want instead?
Right,
Because you want
right.
something, right? And that goes back to the idea of like there's like symptoms and causes, right? People will say, I want to make more money and not necessarily mean it or not know why that's actually like a symptom or a byproduct of something they want the money for. And so there
Yes.
is like an emotional connection to why we want to do things the way that we do. And so Susie, I'd be like, well, what do you want instead?
Yeah,
If you're not going
exactly.
to speak for money, what do you want out of it instead? Because there's something there. And then
Yeah,
you understand why and you understand the like the mental emotional drivers behind things.
totally.
Curiosity is an amazing superpower.
It is. And it makes you realize, like, to answer your question, if I was asked, is like, I love to be in front of people and make impact. And that's really the
Yeah.
driver.
Yeah.
It really is. The business is, it's I have to do it. I have to make the money. And if
Right.
that's kind of how it is too. I would love people to shift their perspective on their career and really think about what is it that you want more of. And I try to challenge people to think about that, like, allow yourself to imagine, like, I want more experience. I want to understand what it's like to be in the boardroom. Like, think about the asks that you'd like to just experience. If you respect a leader that sits way over here in the organization, what ask them if you could sit in on their staff meeting. You're curious how they lead. If you want to have more public speaking experience, if you want to, like, don't just wish you had it. Really
Yeah.
think about what you want so that you can anchor that idea or get people to think about you differently. Just like we talked about earlier, where leaders are responsible to understand the evolution of their people, how they're evolving. Sometimes they don't see their evolution and you need to help them celebrate that so that they can have more courage to go forward. But
Yeah.
we also need to we believe that people can hear up here and they don't live up here. So they don't know what we want. We think they do. And we
Yeah.
think they care and they think about us a lot more than they do.
Yes.
If only we would
Yes.
come to realization that they don't, that they don't spend as much time as we believe they do. But if we need to remind people, and I like people to frame it, it's really easy. You could go, when if you, Angie, you and I met each other in the hall and we work together, and I respect you as a leader, you're in another part of the organization. You say, Susie, how are you? The easy answer is to go, busy, fine,
Yep.
like everybody. But why not take the opportunity to go, oh, I'm so excited. Our results that the team has had over the last month is 50% higher than last month's. And everybody's motivated and excited. I'm just really excited about it. Thanks for asking. I'm not like, that's not a sandwich board that I'm like, look how good
No.
I am. It was
You're
an
not
easy
using
way.
numbers to
Yeah.
brag. You're
Yep.
just being honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at the impression. I'm showing you my shift. I'm showing
Mm.
you, I'm allowing you to see me differently than how you saw me. I'm showing you my evolution. I think we all need to do that.
I I think that at the end of the day, I would say, do we call the following a truth bomb? I don't know. I won't take that much credit for it. However, leadership is a human activity.
Yeah.
However, and I write about this. I have a whole chapter about this in my book actually. We have taken that and conflated it with management.
Mhm.
Because instead of leadership being about seeing people, thinking differently, being curious, using your intuition, meeting people where they're at and taking them along with you, it has totally been replaced with I lead a P&L. I lead a strategy. I
Mhm.
lead a process. I lead all of these things, not all of these people. And if you can segment the two, sometimes we do need to manage things, right? You
Mhm.
and I both know, as much as we love what we do, we also need to make money so that I can pay my mortgage and eat. And
Right.
sometimes that requires looking at a P&L. But I think sometimes that takes the focus away from the fact that leadership is a human activity. And if you approach it differently, you're going to get different results. And I think that's in a good way.
Yeah. Super interesting. And I also and to that point, to your point, to build on what you're saying, which is another way to support people, is to not just,
Mhm.
like, start with my idea and move
Yeah.
on, but, is also to and then, I made that point, and then I just totally lost my train of thought.
It's okay because I have a question for you.
Okay.
It'll probably come back, and it might be this might trigger the answer. Earlier, you asked me, like, what, basically, like, what advice do we have? And
Yeah.
and we also talked about how there's lots of leadership advice out there. We're doing it right now. You should see humans. You should be curious. You should, you should, you should. We're shooting all over you all out there. So, in the interest of being different, I think we should give people some practical stuff, right? Like, how do we implement these changes? Like, what's your favorite tip for a leader who wants to see their team more?
Like, literally see them or understand them see
Ooh,
them?
you get to define see.
Okay. Do something different.
Mm.
I like to challenge people. Like I said before, we get in our habit our habit rut. You have permission to reuse that. That's
Okay.
okay.
Hashtag
Habit
habit
rut.
rut. Yeah, there you go.
Good.
You heard it
Anyway.
here first, y'all. You heard it here first.
Start doing things differently. Don't show up the same way.
Mhm.
Surprise, is one of the emotions that affects us the most. And silence, we get so used to the way people show up. So
Habit rut.
much so that we listen the least to the people that we know the most.
Yep.
And so
Yes.
your teams are getting used to how you're showing up. And
Yeah.
so sometimes the answers they're giving you are the auto response that they're used to saying.
Yep.
So if you all of a sudden don't have an agenda, or if you, instead of starting out by giving everybody an update of the business and what's going on, and you say, we're going to do something a little different today, I'm going to give you questions that I want you each to just answer off the cuff. I'm just thinking, like,
Yeah.
do something different and show up
Mhm.
differently, because what that does is it interrupts their auto response.
Yep.
And you know what it does? It forces them to think.
Yeah.
So how do you get people to think more?
Yeah. You breaking the patterns. It's so funny, Susie, because if I had to ask myself this question, one of the things I was thinking is, like, change your agendas.
Mhm.
Super, super basic and fundamental. But if you
Yep.
do, well, let's go a step before. If you do not have some sort of regular cadence, does not mean it has to be like an 8:30 a.m. stand up 5 days a week. Because I actually think that has the opposite effect. That's
Yep.
a hashtag habit rut. But if you don't have regular meetings with your direct reports, and then on some cadence, your entire team, you should.
Yes.
And think about your agenda, because you are totally right. I would say most people go into a staff meeting in report mode instead of curiosity mode. Start with wins. What is everybody proud of over the last month, whether it's at work or at home? And what are our goals? And changing the pattern to get people
Mhm.
to both think differently and engage differently. And then you have to, capital L, listen to
Mhm.
what you're hearing, but it will bring out a different type of engagement. You may have somebody who's typically quiet who starts to kind of, like, pipe up, and all of that creates a really cool ecosystem.
Yeah. Here's a really simple example. I was in a team event with a very senior team, and the senior the senior leader was in the and we started kind of brainstorming, and the senior leader stood up and got the whiteboard marker and started writing what people were saying. And I said to him after, I said, "What would have happened if you would have just sat there?" So sometimes it's being intentional about the
Mm.
change, and sometimes it's changing your behavior, or hand just instead of picking that up, just handing it to somebody else. don't give a lot. Like, you don't have to tell them. You don't even have to say, hey, Rod, I wanted you to, why don't you get up on the board? Like, hand them, don't give them a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like coachy stuff Susie and I learned in coach college, right? It's asking questions to allow people to get to their own conclusions. And I think that's just as powerful as like hey, what would have happened if you just sat there and let everybody talk instead of documenting it, as it is to say to somebody like, hey, what do you think?
Yeah.
And actually caring what they say.
Yeah.
That goes back to curiosity. As coaches, that's something that we, I think definitely, one, are taught, but two, naturally have and take that mindset. I
Yeah.
think curiosity is underutilized and very powerful, especially in the age of greater need for human connection, or need for
Yeah.
greater human connection, however we look at that.
Yeah. And I also think we believe we're good listeners. So I would also challenge people to use AI and look at how much, because the metric is you should be talking 30% of the time. And so I would really challenge people to look at that. I've coached people that go, oh, I only listen. And I talk to their team, and their team's like, he only talks the entire time. He doesn't give anybody else. Or there's another senior leader that I asked him how he gets feedback, how he knows that he's hearing everybody in his team, on his team. He has like a monthly with his whole organization. So there's like 300 people on the phone, or, there. And he reserves the last 10 minutes for questions or anything they want to say. And I'm like, and he believes that's open communication.
That's okay. This is what I envision that is. And this is early career engineer Angie PTSD. That to me says, yeah, I have an open door. Come talk to me anytime between 2 and 2:15 p.m.
Yeah. That's like saying HR is open. We have an open door all the time. Does that mean you should go to HR? No.
And you don't really think about it until you stop and you go, wait, this is kind of ridiculous, because it is the norm. And so you've got to think about it and disrupt patterns. I'm laughing about that now in my head, and just the visual, because it basically means no one's listening for the first 20 minutes. Let's be real.
Exactly. For sure. And you know what? What I've learned is I've gotten older, which I'm really happy to be older. I used to think people rationalized getting older and saying that, but I really believe it, even though I am old, is that you should be talking less. Like, I really see the value. I think that if you're junior, if you have to spend a lot of time talking, you're not the leader you think you are. So really challenge yourself on that, and seeing how much you're talking, then I want you to think about that comment, because I think good leaders, my executive coach told me one time, you can always tell the wise people in the room because they have nothing to prove. So they're the ones that are sitting back and just listening to everybody else. So be wise.
Yeah.
And be quiet.
They're the ones that in an hour-long meeting say nothing until minute 59 when 18 words come out, and it's brilliance.
Yeah. Totally.
You're like, where have you been for the other 58 minutes? Now I don't want to talk, Susie, because I feel junior. No, I'm kidding. Here's a challenge to everybody out there. We've talked a lot about technology, and there are places where it can be very, very useful. If you think, oh yeah, I only talk 30%, you ready for this? You record your meetings, you put them into a transcription service, and it will tell you how much you talked versus how much the other people in the meeting talked. Receipts. Yeah. And also, I know that there's got to be other coaches watching us right now. I challenge you to do this, because if you are talking more than 30% in the time, you are not holding space for your clients and creating the awareness and curiosity that we want to do. So you're leaders too, people. You're leaders too, if you're coaching and leading clients. And so there's a little challenge for you, is take a week's worth of meetings and do the math. Yeah. You might not like what you find, but you'll be aware.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We do keynotes, you and I do keynotes, and we're always working on scripts and stuff. And so we, on our storytelling and everything. And I realized that I over-explain things sometimes. And so my coach was challenging me on that. And she's like, you don't need all this. Like, I'm going to can I have your permission to cut your script? And I said, yes. And when she read it for me, I still understood very clearly. And I was like, wow, what a missed opportunity. So I think as leaders, we go beyond, like, this is the other thing as a coach. Here's another coach secret. You don't have to ask, like, you don't have to clearly have a question that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's my I think that we can all try less hard, which seems as like a strange statement as we're talking about listening more and, and human leadership, but in all honesty, it really just means try less hard to put barriers in between everything and just be a human. Hashtag humans still matter. I had bracelets made that say it, people, and there's a reason. But I think that's a very good thing to think about. Is like, I think you can try less hard. The speaker thing, though, I'm going to get on a quick little soapbox, which,
Yeah.
by the way, if you are loving the Susie and Angie sound off / Susie and Angie speak the truth, we will be doing this monthly. So keep your eye out. Maybe more, because this is really fun. Speakers. I want to give you a total case study to support what you just said, because what I have been seeing lately, this past fall, I went to a lot of events. There was one turnaround where I was home for 52 hours, and I'm seeing this trend of, I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk really fast. And that's my permission to shove 3 hours worth of content into a 30-minute presentation, because I can't only give you one idea to support it. I have to give you 37 ideas, which means you're going to walk away with no ideas.
Zero.
Yes. And that's the thing. Like, that's like, try less hard. Less is more, especially in a conference environment where they've got 12 of those. But even just in general, like, simplify, and the amount of if you streamline the amount of information, it becomes stickier.
Yeah. Yes, you need to make it easy for your people to, and let them think on their own. When you give them too much, it's the same idea of, like, changing the cadence.
Yeah.
If you give them a question that isn't fully understood or has an expectation for an answer,
Yeah.
you will make them think about it, and you'll learn so much more. And then, by the way, when they get done answering, practice silence to see what other, like, let it dwell. Like, practice silence a lot and see what happens.
Mhm. There's power in the pause.
There is power in the pause.
Yeah. Yeah. Susie, this is fun.
This is fun. I'd love, to your point, if you like this, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love you to be here live, or if you have a question you want us to debate or talk about. I know you can tell we're going to go, the line is not linear for Angie and I when we talk about things at all.
And I don't think there's anything off the table.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. We'd love your questions. We'd love you to participate. What our intent is to have value and impact for people, and really talk about things that we think sometimes, but people don't discuss.
Yes.
So that we can demystify because it's hard. Leadership is hard. We want to be here and be supportive.
I think that is a great way to wrap up the very first Susie and Angie Sound Off. And I'm totally with you. So connect with us. If you can't be here live, you can always find replays. Drop either of us a message or both of us a message if you've got kind of a burning question, and we'll put it on the table and debate it and tell you what we believe to be the truth.
Yes.
And thanks to all of you out there who are either watching live or have tuned into the recording, and watch your feeds for the announcement of the next one. I think it's March 19th. Same time. And so if you've got suggestions on what you want us to talk about, have at it. But I also have no fear that we will find something on our own, if you don't, to add value to your world in both life and leadership. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Yes.
This is Susie and Angie signing off.
Bye-bye.